My name is Alan Wade, and I'm actually going to get the slideshow started. There we go. I am a freelance software engineer. I've been doing software engineering for about 7 years now, and I have been doing freelancing for the past few months. And in the last few months, something that I've learned is that prototyping has been essential for communicating my ability to solve problems to business people fast. So I actually found a YouTube video about how to make a chatbot. And I know everybody loves chatbots in the realm of like, how do you do something? They say, make a chatbot for it. And then that's like the millionth example that they have. Everybody now can spin up a chatbot, whether it's through Replit or whatever, in about 10 minutes. But we're gonna do it today in 2 different ways. And it's gonna be using Flowise. Flowise is an open source tool for low code. You have a bunch of different AI implementations and augmentations that you can leverage. So after that, we're going to talk about like why would we prototype instead of just using vibe-based coding. No shot to anybody else in this room. But there is use cases for each of them. And then what resources we're going to use, how we're going to do it, the actual demo, and then follow up with any questions. So as I mentioned before, Flowise is a low-code tool. If you have seen anything with low-code, you're probably familiar with Zapier, Make, NAN, any of those tools. This is just taking that, removing any subscription, and being able to run it in a Docker container on your local machine. So I have already preemptively done that because a lot of things can go wrong with a demo. But everything you see today is going to be local. You could deploy any of this into a server or AWS instance and do the same thing. So while there are some immaculate vibes with vibe coding, if you don't know what you are writing, it makes it very hard to maintain. So prototyping allows me to take the vibes and turn it into an understanding of the base concepts. So why am I doing embedding for any of this text that I'm using? Why am I using this model over that model? What's the cost that it's going to be whenever this actually goes live? Those kinds of questions you may be able to get from vibes, but you can see it with graphs and doing your prototypes. So I have 4 main tools. As mentioned before, programming languages technically aren't essential anymore, but behind the scenes, low code and no code is going to be using something like that. I'm using OpenAI models that are now very old in comparison to the rest of the models with AI, just because I like paying pennies. And then Pinecone is going to be how I take any of the text that I'm going to use for the chatbot and turn it into vectors. So as mentioned, for technology people not being able to talk to business people, our words don't make the best use case for AI and LLMs to give us good output. So we vectorize that data, make it something more machine usable, and that's what the Pinecone DB and the OpenAI text embedding is going to be used for. And lastly, despite all of the not real shots about vibe coding, I use Cursor because I like to have my own standard structure and get all the boilerplate out of the way. And I am traditionally a Java dev, but all of this is in Python because AI, Python are like a match made in heaven. So, all that rambling aside, this was supposed to be a 10-minute talk. As you saw from the presentation length, it's about 15 minutes. It's a lot of information to go through, but now I have even more buffer to talk about it. Thank you. We'll get to the self-plugs here in a minute, but this is the way zoomed out version of Flowise. So this is the whole example. I will zoom in if you want to take better pictures, but the overall is just that this says I want to take text files and embed them with specific models and use OpenAI in order to leverage it. So this is one of the many, really bad with the trackpad, pardon me. This is one of the many predefined use cases within Flowise. So if you don't know what to make and you want a basic understanding, what you can do is use any of the integrations that they have and they have everything from utilities to different AI integrations and sources. So if you wanted to have an AI agent be able to take your emails and connect it to your calendar and say, follow up with Tom at 3 p.m. on Friday based off of the email, it will make a Google Calendar invite for you and Tom to have that meeting. All these things are drop-downs too. You'll notice that I do not have an open API key just sitting in here because I value my own keys. You will also not see my keys in the presentation in Cursor. They are in a .env file that is not committed to my GitHub, but all of this code will be available after the presentation if you want to take a look at it. So, in order to get started with this, here's the riskiest part. I'm going to go flowwise.com. Should work, maybe. Nope, that is a very different site. Flowwise, look it up on Google, and it'll actually take you to their download Docker image pull Flowwise, and you can also git clone their repo to deploy it. So how this actually functions, a lot of talking on just one segment there. You can also give a system message. We talked about prompting a little bit in the previous speech. I wanted to have it give me some specific output, but because I had refreshed, the prompt isn't there. I want to say provide source information in the responses. And you can use this here. And I had already done some chat, so it has a blank, doesn't have a blank slate currently, but I'm going to pull this up and say, what can you tell me about MCP? MCP, for those of you who don't know, is a new type of protocol that allows AI to connect with tools. So there's MCP servers and clients, not going to go into the whole details, that's like a completely different talk. But this now summarized all of that information. Where is it storing that? In my very aptly named Flowwise cheap index within Pinecone. I can actually track all of this on my OpenAI subscription, so every single time I do this, it is costing me less than a penny. I took the MCP docs. There are FAQs, server implementations, client-side implementations, etc. Converted them to a .txt file, and then stored them in Pinecone. Sounds like a lot. It's just saying I want to take that website and put it over there because I want to ask questions. This way, whenever it has context to things outside of that, also, sorry, Jen, I am now just taking other people's data and saying that it's my own. Not really. But this allows me to learn about things without all of the bloat. Because one of the main problems that I have whenever using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever is that it starts trying to pull in a bunch of other information that isn't relevant to the question that I'm asking. So it's effectively prompting by using retrieval augmented generation for my chatbot. Have I lost anyone yet? I see a question.
So instead of using ChatGPT, can you use Olama or LM Studio for the same purpose?
You can use a lot of the brains here. So let's just look up LLM.
Because Olama and LM Studio are local, not in cloud.
Yeah, so you can use almost any of the models for what you want it to be generated off of. So if you don't have an OpenAI subscription or you want to use Claude or Hugging Face or whatever, you can deploy that and then point it to it. I just have a $5 credit for OpenAI, so I used it to make this whole demo.
You can use local models as well. Okay. Thank you.
So The other thing that I did is I wanted to have this be a little bit more visually appealing other than having the chatbot off to the side here. So I made a data ingestion pipeline here. There's a lot of code. I say a lot, it's just a couple hundred lines. But this is just going to take the URLs that I submit and put it into the location so then I could ask questions on that information. The same exact thing I did in FlowWise, but now I can take what I did, iterate on it, trim it down, make it more digestible for the information, and cost me even less money. And the reason why I'm so focused on the cost is because when I was doing software development, the number one thing that was drilled into my head was how much money is this going to cost and how long is it going to take you to do it? If I could solve both of those problems by making an effective prototype, that means that for somebody's business ask, I can say, this is possible. This is how much the prototype cost. Whenever we scale this, this is where you're going to be going with your direction of monetary spend.
And that monetary spend will include the privacy aspects, disclaimers.
Yes.
Notice. Of course they will.
Of course they will. So I have now this interface, which is the chat section of that code, the other file from that repository. I can ask it questions about what it has, but it's also now going to link me back to MCP, because one of the other things that has been happening over time as the LLMs have evolved is that you don't know where it got the data from. So, provide a summary of MCP with sources. Oh no, you're thinking really hard. Oh, it's because I cleared it. I cleared it for the sake of being able to show the upload. And this was the source that I was talking about. So this is the introduction. It didn't have any context before. I can provide this URL. It's definitely going to upload the first time. And I can ask the same question. Provide a summary of MCP. Every time.
We've all been there with the demo, man.
Yep. So, unfortunately, it doesn't have the information. I'm going to try one thing real quick. Control C. Run it again. What do you know about MCP? Nope. Okay. This is the demo gods not smiling in my favor today. But overall, the code example, whenever everything's working together, will provide a link to what you have within your code base to the actual source information. That way you could upload however many things that you want over and over again, and it will give you the context that you need. The last thing that I wanted to show was I had this really nice graph based off of the things that we did today. You'll see that this bar will go up a little bit. It went from 16 to 19 requests, but today, May 27th, it is still even less than a penny than it was yesterday. Granted, I will take the fact that it didn't work. So the last thing that I had here was just a thank you. What we did is go over both the FlowWise version, which actually had the information and gave that whole summary. The two things that I have here, because I'm a freelancer, if you want to shop with me about anything in AI or software engineering or where they meet, that's the top one. If you want to see what I've done before, my website is down below. So yeah, thank you. Any questions? No? Okay.